In this video, we're going to be setting up our assets to be ready for painting in Substance Painter. So you can see here that I have this World War II automatic pistol. And what I've done is I've cleaned it up, there's no history, and I've gone around and named each individual part of this object. So we've got here like the barrel top, the base slash trigger, magazine, and the grip or handle or whatever you want to call it. Now, in Substance Painter, we are not altering the actual mesh itself. What we're doing is we are playing around and adding to the material or the shader. So right now, this object, if we go to the attribute editor, has a Phong shader assigned to it. If I was to take it into Substance Painter, essentially I'd be painting this entire model. It doesn't matter that it's in 4 pieces, because it has one shader, that's all I'm going to be painting. So Substance Painter knows, okay, there's only one shader, so we're going to paint everything associated with that shader. For instance, have a look at this little character here in Substance Painter. I think it's called Matt. Nice little pun there. So in the texture set settings, you can see that we have these 3 parts. Now, sure, these are different meshes, but if you look at the side here, it says main shader. Each part of this body of Matt here has a different shader assigned to it, whether that be like a Lambert or a Phong, etc., which we can paint onto. So if I click on the body here, and if I was to just add like a paint layer really quick, I could just paint onto, I'll just use that really quick. It would only affect the body. I'm not actually painting in that particular shader here. So in the head shader, again, I'm just painting the head. I'm not painting that body there. So we need to go around and add in materials to the different parts of the object that we want to texture. So at the top here, just hold on the right mouse button, assign new material. Now we won't be using the PBS shader. We don't really need that. The one you'll be using is basically the default material, like say a Phong or a Lambert. So Phong probably the best one to go for. So Phong, and this is where you're going to have to name it. So it is important. It might have the same name as the mesh itself, which is completely fine. So I'm going to just call this top. This one here, assign new material. Again, Phong. I'm going to call this base. Again, same with the magazine. Assign new material. Phong. And I'm going to call this mag. Assign new material. Phong. And grip. Yeah, it's saying 1 because obviously the actual model itself is called grip, so we're putting grip 1 next to it. So again, make sure you name it something a bit more appropriate. So if I now set this into Substance Painter, I would be painting on the grip shader. I'm not actually painting on the mesh itself, I'm painting on the material. Now if I go back to the algorithmic one, you can see here that there are 2. There is a low poly one and a high poly one. In Substance Painter, we'll be doing something called baking out maps. These maps are going to determine certain attributes of our material, such as the world normal, curvature, and even identification as well, or ID maps. So it is important that you name these appropriately. So this outer shell here is known as outer_low, and its high poly counterpart is outer_high. So if you have got a high poly one, please make sure that you do put underscore high or underscore low respectively, or whatever naming convention that you wish to go for. Now if you do have a high poly model, it is worth creating something known as a ID map. Now an ID map, in simple terms, is a texture that helps software such as Substance Painter create masks. We'll talk about masks in later videos. This can help identify certain areas of your UVs that might have different materials. So, for instance, this model here, if this is going to be like a sort of like a camouflaged texture, so we might have like a camo texture here, but in Substance Painter it will also paint around those screws. Now, maybe I don't want those screws to be painted, so in the identification mask, we can say, okay, these screws here will have a different material or will have this material at all. You'll find that with certain meshes, you might have parts of the model that are either metal or there might be sort of like cloth or leather there. The identification map will help identify in Substance Painter, okay, these are separate areas that you'll be painting separately. Again, another example would be this one here. So here you can see that you have like a paint Lambert, which is just red. So this is for the identification map. So we're just saying here that, okay, this is going to be the painted metal. On this one here, you can see that you have the wire for this lantern, which is identified as yellow. You've got the painted metal, which is red, and you've got the exposed metal, which is blue. So Substance Painter knows that, okay, using these basic colors, we can identify different materials. That way when we mask it, we can get rid of certain things that we don't want. And again, if I use my gun as an example, if I just duplicate this really quick, we don't even need to bother with the shaders. I'm just going to quickly assign a basic Phong to this for the overall thing. I might say, for instance, in this base here, I want the trigger to be a different material when I paint it. So I'm going to assign new material to this, go for a Phong, and just put a simple colour, like a red for instance. Well, in this case an orange. Where's the red? Well, we'll go for that. And I'll just call this trigger. On the handle as well, I'll just select these areas here, because this handle part here is going to be wood. This part here will be metal, this part will be wood, so I don't want metal on this part whatsoever. So I can use this ID map to tell Substance Painter, okay, get rid of the metal attributes that I've added to this section here. So I'm going to assign a material to this area here. We'll go for a red. Again, all have to be different colours, so I'll probably go for a sort of like a green colour. Again, it's entirely up to you. As long as it's a different colour, that's what matters the most. So I'm going to call this wooden handle. And again, I would do the same for the other side as well. And I think even for like the base Phong as well, this could just be metal. Again, it's entirely up to you what you want to use as identification maps. Let's call this switch, for instance. And I would make sure that my naming convention is the same as this. So here where it says base trigger, I might put base trigger underscore trying to think of it. Underscore main, possibly. Then this one here, I want to make sure it's the same name, and I'll put this as ID. So again, if I just go back to the algorithmic one here, we've got outer low, outer high, and you can see we have identification maps already assigned for the screws here. Once that's complete, you want to go to File, Export Selection, and make sure you export it out as an FBX, and then we can import it into Substance Painter. One last little disclaimer, please make sure that it is fully UV unwrapped as well. If it isn't, then it's not going to work, so make sure that your model is already UV unwrapped before you even start this particular series.